Yeah, no, I mean, I did music.
Okay, I'm here at the table with
Peter Jenner.
Peter Jenner, and you're a manager. You told me.
Yes.
And who did you manage? Billy Bragg, my personal favorite.
I spent a lot of time managing Billy Bragg since I think we started around 83, 84, somewhere like that. And I now I'm 70 this year, so we decided that probably it was about time I sort of was put out to grass a bit, and so I'm now consult with him and work with him a bit, but more historical. So I did that up until last year.
Yeah.
Or this
So
year.
so you were or still are in music business a long time.
A very long
Yeah,
time, and I'm now working with someone called Sushila Raman, which is a very interesting thing. I can.
And when we look back, sometimes we think a lot has changed, but in the essence, has it?
That's an interesting question. I like that question. In essence, no, it hasn't changed. It's about creating something which the public responds to positively and responding to that and getting into if you're lucky, a sort of virtuous feedback loop. And then you get bigger and you go abroad and you build your market nationally, and then you go abroad and it builds from that. And so the question is getting noticed and providing and keeping your fans and building new fans and reviving your fans and so on. So in that sense, the fundamental thing, I think you're right, hasn't actually changed that much, but it's how you do it has changed. How you find new fans, how you keep them, how you feed their need for you.
And how you find gigs?
That comes from whether you've succeeded in finding fans. I think, in a sense, however that's reflected through sales or through, clicks or whatever it is, the promoters know that there's an interest. You're on a radio playlist, you're getting tons of genuine feedback on Facebook or whatever it is, or the kids in their club are saying, "Oh, have you heard the new record by or the new song by?" People sort of things get out, so you've always, there are the people, the key opinion makers, the leaders, who turn on their friends, they're people, and often those are DJs, they become DJs, but before they were DJs, they were doing it anyway, usually. So there's DJs, and then within the school or the college, there's a sort of opinion leaders, if he likes it, check it out. People who spread the word, and it's all about, it's sort of the ripples of the pond. You throw the stone in, and the ripples go out, and they get lower and lower, but they get more and more and wider. Yeah. So that's still the game.
Yeah, but you say the difference is in finding an audience, finding the.
It's the mechanics of how you find the audience. The audience.
So what do you have to do now that you didn't have to do?
Well, what you had to do, you have to go with where the mass media is, so that when back in the 60s, you'd get a bit of radio play and you'd do gigs, and you'd go into independent shops who would hear about it, and you'd do interviews in the NME and the Melody Maker, and they read about you, and then they'd go and see gigs, and then they liked that. If they liked it, and then they would talk to their friends, and then you'd do bigger gigs, and you'd get bigger articles, and you'd go into national papers, and you'd get onto TV.
So it would grow and
radio,
grow.
So it then sort of grows. Now, in that sense, the manifestation of your popularity, I was told feedback when I started working with Billy. I was working at Charisma Records for a year. It was my only time in a record company, and the only time when I got a wage, I think, actually, for a year. And
you didn't like it?
No. The company was going down the tubes, and I was brought in to try and save it, and I didn't, because I wasn't really interested in that. I was interested in music and things, so I was a bad job. But anyway, the head of the company was Charisma Records. The head of the company, Tony Stratton Smith, he was a man who liked to drink, and so he would leave at 5:30, and he had his office above the old Marquee Club, The Marquee Club, this was in the 80s, was a very important venue. So I said to him, how do you know who to sign? Because I was in there being A&R man and also marketing. I said, how do you know who to sign and who not to sign? He says, oh, well, it's easy. I said, it's easy? He says, yes. I leave at the office at 5:30 to go and have a drink. And if I haven't heard of the band and there's a big line, I'll come back and check them out. Now, what's the difference between that and and how many clicks you've got on Facebook? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're generating a crowd, and so subsequently someone suggested to me how the key thing is if you can draw a crowd, you can earn money.
But is drawing a crowd on Facebook, does that? Well, do you need different tools for that, or do you need to be a different sort of artist for that?
Well, possibly, but it's at the end of the day, it's about communicating with the public, and and you communicate perhaps in a different way. You know, maybe you used to have in the old days, you'd have a fan club, however, and you'd do lots and lots and lots of gigs. Now maybe you do less gigs, and you spend more time doing internet things and having, chat rooms with your fans or Facebook things or whatever.
Do you feel bands do that enough?
Probably not. But it's very time consuming. Am I a musician, or am I a journalist, or am I someone who's endlessly feeding my audience? I mean, in a sense, what the audience wants from the artist more than anything else is more good music. More music and performances they can relate to. But they also like to feel close to it because... Yeah. And this is always an argument I've had with record companies for years, is that too often people think that music is just about the noise. It's not. The noise is an important part of it. But who you represent, what sort of attitude you are, and that is, whether you're fashionable, whether you're cool, whether you're left wing, whether you're right wing, whether you're on Simon Cowell, if you're on X Factor and you're a serious music fan, you're not going to have anything to do with a band that's on X Factor, bar a miracle. Basically, that's like, no, they're not interesting. And equally, if you're on an indie label, if you're on sort of Mute or something, X Factor isn't going to be interested in you because that's not the game that they play. So you've got these sort of different sorts of things, and it's sort of bad. If you're a heavy metal band, you're not going to listen to a rap artist. If you're heavily into rap, you're not going. So there's all these sort of different sub-markets, and knowing about those, and they've always been there, and how you reach out to people is interesting, and how you find the right people, and these are constantly shifting. These ways in which you communicate with your, if you like your market, or if you like your fans, or if you like the people who listen to your music. Yeah. And part of it might be that I don't communicate. Yeah. Mystery. Now, mystery is another possibility, but it makes it harder for people to find you. It makes it harder for people to, if they're just relying on the noise. Okay, well then that may be it. Yeah. That's fine, you know.
So on one side, you can say the internet makes artists more independent because they can find...
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. But is it overrated?
In some ways, I think so, yes. But I think that also in that thing about, whether it's easier. You see, I think music is also social. It's about who you are and what you are. And part of how you describe who you are and what you are is through what you wear, what books you read, what music you listen to, what pub you go to, what clubs you go to. Mm-hmm. And so music, most successful music that I've been involved with comes out of social movements in some sort or another. A sort of social, not necessarily an organised movement, but a social sort of thing that's happening. Yeah. So that like, starting with the Floyd, it was all about people being hippies and smoking dope and wearing Afghan coats and having bells round their necks. And if you did that, you went off and listened to the Pink Floyd. In the punk days, it was about wearing, cutthroats and, a few staples in you and strange haircuts and bondage trousers. But, if you were into all that, then you'd be into the Sex Pistols or the Clash, and Similarly, if you're into heavy metal, it's like having long hair and lots of leather and studs and, you know, and these things are a very important part of, what they're representing, and attitude. So successful artists usually, consciously or unconsciously, have ridden on these sort of social movements, these social changes, and become more than just the noise. And that's why I say it's more than just the noise.
Yeah, but going back to the internet and the fact that it makes artists independent, and you said, well, that's probably overrated in some sense. In what sense is it overrated?
Well, I think it because I think it's just the it's just the it's the way that you get to the same end. It's just the language you're using. If you're relying on John Peel playing your record, that's one way of doing it. And there's no longer John Peel. There's no longer anything like that now. That stuff has sort of declined, and the NME is a spent force, and things like that. So that, how do I get to the same sort of kindred spirits? And an artist who really knows their market, and most artists are quite good at knowing or feeling for their market because they come from their market. They come from this. That's their school, and the market may grow and it may become more ill-defined. But so you have to sort of work at getting at them.
Yeah, but nowadays you can be a small artist from Spain and can find an audience in Sweden if you play
if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
If you're,
Yeah.
I mean, that could happen. That could happen, back when, because someone from England might have gone over to Spain, heard the band, wrote something in the NME, and
Or
then
maybe
someone read it about it in the NME, and then wanted to get their record, and then an importer brought it in.
Yeah.
So maybe there were more people involved in it, but this, in a sense, the basic function is the same. It's how that function is expressed.
Yeah, so it could be a journalist coming from England pulling through, or it could be the internet doing the same thing for you.
I might be a journalist in Sweden and just looking around.
And sit at home
I
and
like
still,
that band, and I'm looking for some other Spanish bands. Oh, look, I like that. And then I send it out to my friends, and the next thing I know, it's come to England because someone's picked up on that blog. I think it's people like blogs are very important. Blog sites are probably very important.
Because they're the tastemakers.
The tastemakers, exactly. And they're more international. That's what's interesting. And that, in a way, is quite difficult because you need to have a critical mass of people to be able to do a gig, to be able to, get to somewhere and do something. And if you don't have those tastemakers working for you, perhaps don't get to that critical mass.
How has the change in technology and changed your profession, being a manager?
I have to do more.
Really?
And in many ways, just because I've got to try and organise it myself. Because what I used to do is I would go to have someone would come in, play me thing, and then we'd make a demo, and then I'd go to a record company and I'd do a show, which I could get a show, and there wouldn't be that many of us, and give me supporting someone, and someone they come down in. If I was lucky, I got a publisher, and I got a record company, and away I go. Money would, I get a check, and away I go. Now it's all more bootstraps. You've got to do it as you go along. You've got to somehow keep it going and do a lot of what used to be done by outside sources. I think the big difference at the moment is it's really hard to find investment money. Really hard, because all the people who used to provide investment money, the record companies, are struggling to find where their market is, how they make money. They've got to rebuild their business.
So in that sense, it's become less fun?
I don't know if it's become less fun. It's become different, and it's about doing rather than trying to get people to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And then you get picked up. But at some point, in some ways, that's always what was the thing. You had to make your demo, and you had to do the sleeve for the demo so people would notice it, and you had to sort of get yourself onto local radio so you had some story to tell. It was, in a sense, you've always had to start. I think that starting period goes a bit further, and you may get to the position where you think, well, hell, I don't need a label. I can do it all my own. And I can make my own CDs, which I can sell at the gigs. I can, find an aggregator and put it onto all the websites and collect my money through an aggregator and do all that. And, I don't need a publisher, perhaps. But maybe those people are still useful. Maybe they will, and in time, I think the people who used to do that were record companies and were publishers will find ways in which they can help. And they can help by both providing money, provide experience, and provide network communication so that, for instance, they can say, well, this is the blog you want to be on in Spain. What's the crucial blog in Spain? I need someone to tell me. I don't know. And that sort of thing. So there are, but I think that whole thing whereby, it was a mass production business. It was a very much, the record business was a 20th century development of 19th century mass production technology, and it was heavily capital intensive, and it was a capitalist setup. We now have a different structure. You don't have those big people. You don't have the same gatekeepers,
No.
But the gates are still there, and it's quite how you open those gates is more challenging in many ways. But maybe it's not. It's just a different way. I mean, it was always hard to get a record deal. It was always hard to get a hit, and it's still hard. And you used to be able to get people to provide you with money and gamble that you were going to provide a hit. You can't get those people. You've got to get a hit now yourself.
Yeah, so that makes it more hard for artists.
Well, yes and no, because there's still the space. There's still people interested in music, and increasingly what's happened is the money comes more from doing gigs than
and it's cheaper nowadays to record.
It's much cheaper to record. It's much cheaper to distribute. It's not difficult to get on the web. I mean, you can put your record on the web.
Sure.
I can put
my daughter does it. So like this.
Now the problem is, does anyone listen to it?
Well, she's satisfied. I think there are 2,000. Yes, 2,000.
It's a start. Now
it's
then
a start.
Her challenge is to say, what can I ask those 2,000 people to do to help me build it out?
Build it,
in a sense, without asking them explicitly. But that's what she needs to be thinking, because if she can get that 2,000 to 20,000, then someone will come in and help her market it and distribute it. Because that was the other thing the record company did. They did marketing, promotion, and distribution. You don't need them for distribution anymore. You don't need them for recording anymore, but you still need them for making you stand out from the crowd. That's the challenge. How do you stand out from the crowd, and then how do you find the people who like what you do, and how do you build that kernel of an audience? How do you build that 2,000 into 200,000? That's always been a challenge. But the comforting thing for your daughter to say to her is the first 2,000 is the hardest, and the first million is the hardest, The first 10 million is the hardest. Do you know what I mean? In a sense, the repeat is much easier than the initial, and it gets harder. It gets easier and easier to get the additional one person.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
I bored you to death.
No, you're very entertaining to listen to. Thanks very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. God, I could go on.